Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt something wasn't right, even when they were smiling at you? Have you ever laughed along with a joke that somehow left you feeling smaller afterward? What if the people you think are your friends are actually hiding quiet resentment behind kind words? Let's talk about it because knowing the truth might just save your self-worth. You ready? Let's begin. You know, most people will never admit they dislike you. They won't say it out loud, won't confront you directly. Instead, they'll hide it beneath polite conversations, beneath shallow compliments, beneath those smiles that don't quite reach their eyes. I've lived through that illusion too, thinking someone had my back only to discover, deep down, they were hoping I'd fail. And that realization? It cuts deeper than we expect. But here's the hard truth. If you don't recognize the warning signs, you'll keep pouring your time, your energy, and your trust into people who don't truly value you. So let's cut through the surface and talk honestly. Let's name the signs for what they are, because your peace is worth protecting. Now, here's one of the first red flags. They're always joking about your flaws. Sounds harmless, right? But think about it. We all know that one person who's constantly cracking jokes and the punchline is always you. They zero in on your quirks, your insecurities, your stumbles. They make it sound playful. I'm just messing with you, but something feels off. And that something, it matters. Because these jokes, they're not innocent. They're targeted, deliberate, delivered with a smile. Yes, but that smile hides something sharper underneath. These comments chip away at your self-esteem, slowly, subtly. I remember being close to someone like that. They always had something funny to say about the way I dressed, the way I spoke, even the ideas I was passionate about. At first, I laughed, along told myself they didn't mean anything by it. But over time, I started to notice the pattern. The jokes never touched my strengths, only my weaknesses. They never celebrated what made me unique. They only highlighted what could be mocked. And slowly, almost without realizing it, I started second-guessing myself. Am I really that weird? Do I always sound that awkward? Maybe they're right. That's when it hit me. These weren't jokes, they were tests. Quiet tests. Subtle probes to see just how much disrespect I'd accept before speaking up. It's a twisted form of control, a way for them to stay above you without ever openly putting you down. And here's the scariest part, they usually get away with it. Why? Because we've been trained to believe that if we can't take a joke, then we're the problem. But you know what? Let's flip that thinking. There is nothing wrong with setting a boundary when a joke crosses the line. In fact, it's necessary, because you deserve to be around people who lift you up, not those who tear you down for fun. True friends don't feel the need to humiliate you to feel better about themselves. They see your strengths. They support your growth. They know how to challenge you with love, not with sarcasm. I've seen too many people, maybe even you, let this kind of behavior slide just to keep the peace. But that peace, it's fake, and it comes at the cost of your confidence. The deep truth is this: when you allow disrespect, even disguised as humor, it doesn't stop. It grows. It starts with one small laugh, one offhand comment, but soon it becomes a habit. And if you keep accepting it, they'll keep testing how far they can go until you're left wondering who you are and why you never feel enough. So just pause and ask yourself, honestly, are these jokes really harmless? Or are they quietly undoing the confidence you've worked so hard to build? That's the danger, and when you laugh along with the joke, you're not just letting it slide, you're silently giving them permission to keep going. I had to learn this lesson the hard way. For a long time, I thought staying quiet meant being strong, that brushing it off was the high road. But all it really did was teach them that their behavior was acceptable. I was, without realizing it, complicit in my own disrespect. It wasn't until I began setting real boundaries, firm, unapologetic ones, that things started to shift. Not just in the way they treated me, but in the way I saw myself. I stopped giving their comments the power to define me, and slowly I began reclaiming the narrative of who I was. So if you ever find yourself in that awkward moment where someone cracks a joke at your expense and everyone laughs, don't just smile to keep the peace. Just pause and ask yourself, is this really funny, or is it cutting deeper than I'm letting on? And if your gut tells you there's something more beneath the surface, don't ignore it. Speak up, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it makes things weird, even if it costs you the friendship. Because at the end of the day, your dignity matters far more than someone else's twisted sense of humor. Life's too short to surround yourself with people who can't see your value. If their idea of friendship is to consistently point out your flaws, maybe it's time to find people who don't need to step on you just to feel tall. You deserve better. So stand tall, speak clearly, and never let anyone reduce you to a punchline. Now, let's talk about another sign someone might secretly dislike you. They give compliments that sting like insults. You know the kind. On the surface, it sounds candid and generous. But afterward, you're left feeling a little smaller, a little unsure, like you've just been slapped with a velvet glove. Have you ever heard something like, "Wow, you look great for your age?" Or, "This is actually pretty good considering it's your first time?" You hear the compliment, but it doesn't land right. Instead of feeling lifted up, you feel subtly pushed down. And that's no accident. These are what we call backhanded compliments, a sly and sneaky way to undercut someone's confidence while pretending to be kind. I remember pouring my heart into a project I was truly proud of. I gave it everything: late nights, endless revisions, the works. When I finally shared it with my team, someone I trusted looked at me, smiled, and said, "Wow, this is actually pretty good for someone like you." And just like that, whatever joy I felt vanished. For someone like you, what does that even mean? That I'm not expected to do good work? That this was somehow surprising? You see, these kinds of comments carry a hidden agenda. They're not meant to inspire or encourage. They're meant to remind you of your supposed place to quietly pull you back into line. It's a subtle form of control, a power play, a way to say, "Hey, I notice you trying, but don't get ahead of yourself." And it's even more insidious because it's wrapped in a smile. Most people wouldn't even question it, but deep down, you feel the jab. The truth is, people who use backhanded compliments are often battling their own insecurities. They see your light, your growth, and instead of celebrating it, they feel threatened. So they deliver these disguised insults to keep you small, to make sure you don't rise too fast. It's like they're clapping for you with one hand while holding you down with the other. And here's the uncomfortable truth: you might have done it too. I know I have. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Out of moments where I felt unseen or unsure, and let that slip into my words. We've all had times where our own doubts leaked out and ended up chipping away at someone else. So if we can spot it in others, maybe we need to be brave enough to catch it in ourselves too. Sometimes the most painful words are the ones wrapped in compliments. That's the cruel brilliance of a backhanded remark. It looks like kindness on the outside, but it's really a tool to remind you of your place. But here's the deeper truth: you don't have to accept that false generosity. You have more power than you think. When someone tosses you a line like, "You're smarter than you look," or "This is actually pretty good considering you're new at this," you're allowed to pause, to raise an eyebrow, to say, "Wait, what?" You don't have to swallow it whole. You can call it out, even if it makes things a little awkward. Because if you stay silent, you're silently agreeing with them. You're giving them the authority to define how you see yourself. And that's a power no one, no matter how close or well-meaning, should ever be allowed to hold. I've learned over time that these types of compliments aren't reflections of my abilities, they're reflections of the speaker's insecurities. Once I truly saw that, it changed everything. The sting disappeared. The insult, it lost its power. And honestly, sometimes I could even laugh at how transparent it was. Because in the end, their words told me more about their own self-doubt than anything about me. So now, when I get a compliment that doesn't sit right, I don't smile and move on. I respond gently but clearly. Something like, "Thanks. But what do you mean by that?" That one question, it works wonders. Suddenly, they're forced to hear themselves, to face the little jab they tried to sneak in. And more often than not, they stumble. They backtrack. Because now they realize you're not playing their game. You're not here to be quietly insulted. The real message here is simple: don't let veiled negativity shape your sense of worth. Whether it's coming from a close friend, a jealous coworker, or even a family member, remember this: your value isn't up for debate. Compliments should feel uplifting, not unsettling. And if someone's words leave you unsure about yourself, then maybe it's their intention, not your self-esteem, that deserves a closer look. Life is far too short to keep explaining your worth to people who can't see it. Surround yourself with those who recognize your light and don't feel the need to dim it with side comments or conditional praise. Now, let's move to another subtle yet deeply painful sign of hidden dislike. They begin excluding you from plans. It starts small: a dinner you weren't told about, a party you found out about afterward, a weekend trip that just never came up in conversation. And when you finally notice, the excuses flow freely. "Oh, it was super last minute," or "We figured you'd be busy." But let's be honest, these aren't innocent oversights. This is exclusion dressed in politeness. It's one of the quietest ways to say, "You're not really one of us." And I've been there more times than I'd like to admit. I remember scrolling through my phone on a Saturday and seeing photo after photo of people I thought were close friends, laughing, having fun, sharing inside jokes at an event I would have loved to be part of. Not one person had mentioned it to me. When I brought it up later, lightly, they gave me the usual replies: "We thought you were busy," or "It came together last minute." But deep down, I knew better. If they truly wanted me there, they would have made sure I knew. And that realization, it cuts deep. Because what you're really seeing isn't forgetfulness. It's intent, quiet, calculated distance hidden behind convenient excuses. When someone excludes you without ever saying a word, that silence is the message. They don't want you there, but they don't have the courage to say it outright. Instead, they just hope you'll quietly fade away, slowly drifting from the group without causing any waves. It's subtle, it's passive aggressive, and yes, it's incredibly common. But people rarely talk about it because pretending it's not happening is easier than facing the reality that you're being pushed out. It's easier to swallow their excuses, to nod along when they say, "Oh, it was a last-minute thing," than to confront the painful truth you weren't wanted. But here's where it gets serious. If you keep accepting those excuses, you're giving them permission to do it again. You're letting them define your role in their lives instead of taking control of your own narrative. I had to face this the hard way. For a while, I stayed silent. I let the missed invitations slide, thinking maybe next time would be different. I told myself, maybe they just forgot, or it wasn't intentional. But deep down I knew, and with every overlooked plan, I started to feel smaller, like an afterthought in a space where I once felt at home. Then one day, I decided to stop waiting. I did something uncomfortable, something most people are too afraid to do. I started asking the question out loud. I'd say, "Hey, I saw you all went out last weekend. Why didn't anyone tell me?" And yes, it made things awkward. Some people got defensive. Some scrambled for excuses. But the point wasn't to make them uncomfortable. It was to stop pretending. That moment forced them to look at their behavior and forced me to take back control. Because here's the truth. If someone values you, they make space for you. They reach out. They include you no matter how spontaneous the plan is. And if they don't, well, maybe that silence says everything you need to hear. You deserve to be around people who don't make you feel like you're chasing their time, their attention, or their approval. Real friends don't forget to invite you. They make sure you're there because your presence matters to them. So if you find yourself being subtly left out over and over again, don't just smile and move on. Ask the hard question. Confront the discomfort. Because even if the answer hurts, it's better than being stuck in confusion, wondering why you weren't included again. You are not a backup plan. You are not a placeholder. You are not only if we remember. You are a priority, and you deserve to be treated like one. Now, let's talk about the next red flag. They're always busy, but somehow only when it comes to you. Sound familiar? We've all heard the line, "I've just been super busy lately." It's the perfect excuse. After all, who isn't busy these days? But here's where things get interesting. What happens when they're always busy with you but magically available for everyone else? You start noticing the pattern. They're out having coffee with mutual friends, posting pictures from brunch, showing up to group hang sand, yet when you text, silence. Or worse, that dreaded maybe next week that never actually arrives. It's frustrating, isn't it? And I've been there more times than I'd like to count, reaching out, trying to connect only to feel like I'm bothering someone who seems to have time for everyone but me. And that's when it hits you. They're not too busy for life. They're just too busy for you. I remember trying to reconnect with a friend I used to be really close with. I'd reach out, suggest meeting up, catching a coffee, even just a quick call to catch up. And every time, they had a reason to decline. "I'm working late. Things are crazy right now. Maybe next week." You know how it goes. But then I'd open my phone, scroll through social media, And there they were laughing with others, going to events, spending time with people who clearly weren't me. They always seemed to have time for everyone except me. And eventually, as much as I didn't want to see it, the pattern became impossible to ignore. The message was loud. Even if it wasn't spoken out loud, I was no longer a priority. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. We've been conditioned to accept busy as a valid excuse to be sidelined. We nod and smile, telling ourselves they're just overwhelmed, that their schedule is packed. But let's be honest, people make time for who and what they care about. It's not about how full their calendar is, it's about what they choose to fill it with. If someone always seems busy when it comes to you, that's not a scheduling issue, that's a priority issue. And yes, it hurts. Because it forces you to confront a difficult truth: you might not matter to them the way they matter to you. It's a brutal realization, but it's one that sets you free. The reality is that busy is often just a polite mask for something harsher. I don't want to spend time with you. It's more socially acceptable to blame the calendar than to admit the heart isn't in it anymore. This form of avoidance is passive-aggressive. It keeps you at arm's length while avoiding the emotional responsibility of saying it outright. They want to keep you nearby just in case. Keep the door half open. Keep you hoping, but they don't truly want to invest in the relationship. I know this because I've been on both sides. There were moments in my life when I made the same excuses because I didn't know how to say, "I've outgrown this friendship." But being on the receiving end, that's what really opened my eyes. It taught me that honesty, even when it's awkward or difficult, is always better than pretending. When I finally brought it up with my friend, when I asked them directly why they were always too busy, the conversation was tense. It was uncomfortable, but it was also necessary. It gave me clarity. It helped me let go. And most importantly, it gave me the freedom to redirect my time and energy toward relationships that truly nourished me. So here's the deeper message. Your time and energy are sacred. Don't waste them on people who won't carve out space for you in their lives. If someone is always too busy for you, then it's time to ask whether they deserve access to your time at all. You deserve to be around people who light up when they see your name pop up on their screen, who make the effort not because they have to, but because they want to. And yes, people change. Relationships shift. Sometimes we hold on out of comfort, out of memory, out of fear of being alone. But just because someone was important to you once doesn't mean they deserve your presence forever, especially. They only show up when it suits them. There's courage in letting go, in realizing that you're not here to beg for scraps of attention. It's not about being needy, it's about having the strength to walk away from those who don't walk toward you, because you deserve more than leftover time. And now, let's talk about something we rarely acknowledge out loud. A sign that speaks volumes without needing words. When someone avoids physical contact with you, like it's the plague. So what does it really mean when someone consistently avoids even the most casual physical touch? A friendly handshake, a quick pat on the shoulder, a side hug, none of it lands. They pull away, lean back, or go stiff. And the answer isn't pleasant. It's often a silent signal that they're uncomfortable around you. And when that message comes through clearly, you have to be willing to pay attention. I remember working with a colleague who would instinctively recoil every time I reached out, whether it was a handshake or just a casual gesture of camaraderie. At first, I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was imagining things. But over time, I started to notice something that hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't a general trait. This person was warm and physically expressive with everyone else. Hugs, high fives, back slaps, no hesitation. But with me, it was like I carried some invisible wall. It didn't take long to realize that this wasn't some quirky habit. It was deliberate. Their avoidance of physical contact wasn't random, it was targeted. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Physical contact is a fundamental part of how we connect as human beings. We're not talking about romantic gestures. We're talking about basic signals of trust, warmth, and safety. So when someone goes out of their way to avoid it, they're sending a message, one that says, I don't feel safe or comfortable getting close to you. And yes, some people are just naturally less touchy-feely. That's absolutely valid. But when that behavior is selective, when they're open and tactile with others but tense around you, that's when the red flag goes up. Because now it's not about their personality. It's about their perception of you. Their body language speaks louder than any words. And the truth is, most of us have been on both sides of this dynamic. Maybe you've instinctively leaned away from someone whose energy felt off. Or maybe you've noticed someone subtly backing up when you step closer. And in those moments, the discomfort isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's awkward, it's confusing, but it's also incredibly revealing. Because physical connection, no matter how small, is one of the primary ways we build and express closeness. When someone avoids that with you, they're not just avoiding a gesture, they're avoiding intimacy, vulnerability, and even emotional engagement. It's not just about hands not touching, it's about hearts not opening. I had to learn the hard way to stop dismissing these cues. For a long time, I chalked it up to personality, or told myself I was reading too much into it. But as I paid closer attention, I saw the pattern. And when I finally acknowledged what was really going on, it led to some difficult, necessary conversations. In some cases, it meant the end of the relationship. In others, it brought clarity and healing. Either way, I was no longer stuck wondering what I'd done wrong or why things always felt just a little off. So, here's the deeper truth. When someone avoids physical contact with you, it's rarely just a harmless quirk. It's often a direct reflection of their emotional distance. Don't ignore it. Don't explain it away. If you notice that pattern, especially if it's consistent, be courageous enough to face it. Bring it up. Ask questions. Because whether it leads to deeper understanding or helps you walk away from a connection that's not real, at least you'll know. And sometimes, knowing is the first step toward peace. Denial can be comforting, but it doesn't change the truth. You deserve relationships where physical contact isn't something awkward to avoid. It's something natural, comforting, and effortless. Whether it's a handshake, a warm hug, or just sitting close without tension in the air, those little moments matter. They build trust. They build emotional safety. And if someone constantly avoids them with you but not with others, then something deeper is off. Don't be afraid to ask the uncomfortable questions. And if the answers hurt, don't be afraid to make the hard decision. Life's too short to be surrounded by people who keep you at a distance literally and emotionally. Now let's move to another powerful sign. Someone might secretly not care as much as you think they do. They vanish when you need support. Let's be real, there's nothing like a crisis to expose the truth of a relationship. When everything is going well, it's easy to have friends around. Everyone wants to be part of the good times, the wins, the laughter. But the moment life gets messy, when you're struggling and raw and in need of real support, pay attention to who sticks around. If someone disappears the moment you reach out for help, it's not just flakiness. It's a massive red flag. It's a signal that they were never truly invested in you, not where it really counts. And I've lived this reality. There was a time in my life when I hit a serious low personal struggle that shook me completely. Naturally, I turned to the people I trusted most. I didn't ask for much, just a small gesture of support, a message, a short call, a reminder that I wasn't facing it alone. But what I got? Silence, crickets. The very people I'd been there for in their darkest moments were suddenly nowhere to be found. Instead, I got excuses. Work's been crazy. I'll check on you soon. Hang in there. I'll reach out later. But they didn't. They vanished. And you know what? That betrayal hits harder than you expect. Because it's not just about the pain you're already in, it's the realization that some people only want you when it's easy. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People love to claim they'll be there for you, but when it's inconvenient, when it's messy, they vanish. They'll toast with you during victories, laugh with you during parties, and ride high on your good days. But when the storm rolls in, they're gone. It's easier to ghost you than to hold space for your pain. Why? Because your problems don't benefit them. Because your suffering doesn't make them feel good. And that's when you learn support isn't about showing up when it's fun. It's about being there when it's hard. The people who run away when you're struggling are saying something loud and clear without using any words. They're saying, "You're not worth my time," when things get uncomfortable. That realization is crushing, especially when you remember all the times you did show up for them. You were there through their breakups, their family chaos, their career failures. And now, when it's your turn, they're gone. That's not just painful, it's revealing. It shows you where you truly stand. And while it hurts, it also teaches you something vital. Not everyone who smiles at you is truly in your corner. So here's the deeper messages: support is the foundation of any meaningful connection. And if someone can't offer that when you need it most, then maybe, just maybe, they were never really a friend to begin with. It's easy to be surrounded by people when life is smooth, when the skies are clear and everything seems to be going your way. But the true measure of a relationship isn't found in those sunny day sits revealed when everything starts to fall apart. That's when masks slip and people show you who they really are. If someone disappears the moment you need them, they haven't just let you down. They've exposed a truth that was there all along. They were never truly with you in the first place. But don't let their absence harden your heart. Let it sharpen your vision. Let it make you better, not bitter. Their silence, their neglect, it's a filter. It helps you sift through the noise and discover who genuinely deserves a place in your life. Because the ones who check in, who show up when it's uncomfortable, when there's nothing in it for them, those are the rare, beautiful souls worth holding on to. Those are the people whose presence is worth your time, your energy, and your loyalty. In the end, life is far too short to waste on fair weather friends. Choose to stand with those who will stand with you not only when it's easy, but when the storm hits. Because when someone remains by your side as everything else falls apart, you've found something real. And for those who disappear, let them. They've already revealed their priorities. Now let's talk about another red flag that spreads silently but causes real damage. Gossip. Gossip is like social poison. It moves fast, often under the radar, but it corrodes trust and burns bridges before you even know what happened. The danger lies in how easily it's disguised as harmless chatter. But when someone you consider a friend talks behind your back, it's not just casual conversation, it's betrayal. It's a calculated strike against your trust, your reputation, and the bond you thought was there. And let's not sugarcoat it if they're talking about you when you're not around. They don't truly respect you, no matter how sweetly they smile to your face. I've felt this firsthand. I once opened up to someone I thought was a true friend. I shared something deeply personal, something I wasn't ready to carry alone. I believed my words were safe with them. But within days, that private moment became public rumor, twisted, exaggerated, and turned into gossip fodder. It felt like my pain had been passed around like entertainment. And here's the hard truth: gossip isn't just venting. It's not just talking. It's manipulation. It's a quiet power play, a way to feel superior without ever having to face you directly. It's cowardly, and it cuts deeper than most people realize. At the end of the day, when someone gossips about you, avoids you, excludes you, or disappears when you're at your lowest, they're not just showing you disrespect, they're showing you exactly who they are. And once you see it clearly, the question is no longer, why are they doing this to me? It's, why am I still letting them? You are not here to chase validation, to beg for loyalty, or to tolerate betrayal disguised as friendship. You're here to grow into your strongest, clearest self. And sometimes that means walking away with grace, not resentment. Because real strength isn't in revenge, it's in clarity. So if you've recognized these signs in your life, don't ignore them. Use them. Let them shape your standards. Let them refine your circle. And above all, never doubt your worth. You are not hard to love. You're just too real for people who live behind masks. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the Stoic Room, hit that like button, and explore our playlist. Stoic Wisdom, Mastering Emotions and Inner Strength. The path forward isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Until next time, stay grounded, stay wise, and keep walking the Stoic path.